Well, good afternoon, listeners. You're listening to Lament of Hope podcast, and I'm speaking with Muirgen O'Mahony. She is one of the ladies of Celtic Women. Celtic Women's actually coming to DC area, so I know I have a lot of listeners there. You guys really should come to their Christmas concert. They're doing a White Christmas Symphony tour, and it'll be at the Kennedy Center from December 13th to 14th. Two shows on the 14th, one on the 13th. Um, and I've gone to a couple of their Christmas shows and they're absolutely beautiful. And it's a great way to kind of ease into the holidays. And I mean, yeah, it's a super family friendly group. Any age can come and enjoy it. So I highly recommend it. Um, but I was really excited to connect with Miran today because in the 20th anniversary tour that they did, I loved the solos that she sang. I think specifically Miran, wasn't it? And I'm gonna butcher it because I don't speak, but it was a storm McQuee.
A
How do you
storm
s
of grief. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
so very
I
much. And
love that
nearly,
song.
oh, thank you
Um,
so much.
So anyway, for listeners, look that up because I loved it and that been on my playlist for a while. But anyway, I'm so grateful that you are here for the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So, kind of to start out, I've always wondered if you got to do any song that you could pick that you haven't done yet, what would you do?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. It's so funny. People usually kind of ask, what's your genre or what's the song that you listen to the most? But it's kind of hard to pick one. Do you mean from like the Celtic Woman repertoire, or do you just mean kind of in general?
Just in general, if you could pick a song that you could sing and give your hand at it.
There's a beautiful song by this Irish artist called Declan O'Rourke, and the song is called, I know it by Galileo, but I think it's called Someone Like You. I think that's the official title to it. And for anyone
Mm.
who doesn't know it, listen to it. It is just the most beautiful song. There's something about it. It has this like meandering kind of melody, and obviously him being an Irish artist, I think kind of particularly rings or hits a certain kind of spot for me as well. But it's, yeah, for anyone who doesn't know it, have a listen to it. Male, female voice on it. It's just, yeah, that's one I would love to I don't know, tackle at some point in my future.
Well, I feel like if it's Irish, couldn't you probably could end up doing it with Celtic Woman, couldn't you?
Listen, if it's written in the stars, I'll hope for the best.
What? Because I notice for the melodies you sing, you usually sing really deep, soulful melodies. That seems to be the theme, at least when I've seen for the different songs for Celtic Women that you've sang. Is
Hmm.
that just something that your voice lends itself to, or do you just really like the soulful type of um Irish melodies? Because they're usually not like super happy and peppy, they're more of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
reflective.
That's interesting that you say that. I feel like even in within my time in Celtic Woman, I feel like so I've explored parts of my voice that I hadn't done previous to this. My training, I guess, is kind of would have been in musical theatre and kind of classical, quite high voiced sounds and songs. And particularly since the 20-year anniversary, I feel like I've explored this like deeper part of my voice that yeah, I guess lends itself more to that kind of like soulful side of things. But I know for me, above all else, above like, good singing or nice singing, for me it's about like connecting to the text. And I feel
Mm.
like songs that are quite like melancholic, and obviously songs that connect back to our Irish culture and history, I guess, is just something that kind of is within me naturally. But I think I can draw more out of the text than I might be able to for those kind of lighter songs. So I guess yeah, I have had an opportunity to kind of delve a little bit further into that style of things in more recent years, which has been great.
Is there like, is there a song that's personally meaningful for you? Like something in your family or,
Yeah, well, like for example, A Storm McCree is about immigration, and
Yeah.
Ireland is a country that has spread all over the world. I myself have family that would have left Ireland and gone to the US and would have never actually returned to Ireland. And that's true for so many families in Ireland. Some, grandparents or great grandparents or grand aunts or uncles or aunts or uncles um, would have left, and that would have been the last time that they might have seen their parents ever again, or it could be 14 years before they ever come back again. So despite that not being, an immediate example for myself, although I did immigrate like 8 years ago, and my brother has emigrated, so I guess it is a little bit more personal in that sense, but it's just part of our history and part of our lineage. So yeah, it's fantastic to be able to kind of tell that story to the wider world then as well. Ireland is so small. I don't think people really realize you can drive from the north to the south of, or the south to the north of Ireland within kind of like 6 hours. And it's just,
Wow.
I feel it's crazy that, there are these ties throughout the world back to our tiny island. And yeah, that's a really like part of our culture that I treasure quite a lot.
Did you immigrate to Europe or did you immigrate to America or?
So I emigrated to the UK about 8 years
Okay.
ago. Yeah, I moved to London and spent about 8 years there. And I actually just moved back to Ireland. Literally, when did I be back? 3 weeks ago. So it's a bit of a hectic time. There's a lot going on. But yeah, I'm very happy to be back in Ireland, and it just feels like the right thing to be home. So it's good.
Now, did you move back to Ireland because of Celtic Woman, or is it more of your family's in Ireland and you just missed it and want to come back, or?
Yeah, kind of a bit of everything, to be honest. Definitely being closer to family. But also, I don't know, it just felt like the right time. I have a lot of friends. I've had the most wonderful time in London, and I've incredible friends there. And I know many friends who have since moved back to Ireland said to me, "Oh, you'll know when it's the right time to leave." And I remember thinking, "No, like this is an amazing city. I love it here. I don't think I'll ever
Yeah.
want to leave." And something just happened in the last year where I was like, oh, this is what they mean. I was like, I'm ready to go. And it's an incredible city. It's extremely busy. There's a lot of people there. It can be very overstimulating. So I think I've just gotten to a point in my life where I think I just like a little bit of a slower pace, especially when we are in between tours. It's important to take that downtime and spend as much time with family as possible.
What is, when you're talking about a slower pace, like what does your day look like when you're not touring and you're just at home? Like what does your daily routine look like?
So I would say I'm pretty good at making a timetable for myself, and I'm pretty rigid with sticking to it. I think I'm just someone who just generally fares better with that. Um, I would do, I suppose each morning I would probably go to the gym. I would start with that, and then followed by I would always do a stint of singing practice just to keep everything kind of ticking over in between. I then also do some online teaching, which often would take up some parts of my days, and yeah, different workshops and things like that. Um, we often have like interviews and stuff during, there's a lot of kind of social media stuff surrounding Celtic Woman in between tours as well. So it's funny, it seems kind of like, you kind of want to take the downtime in between tours, but I'm definitely someone who struggles with kind of sitting down and being kind of waiting for the next thing to happen. So yeah, it's about kind of keeping a schedule in between that and looking after, mental and physical health to make sure that we're ready to go each time.
I understand that it's very hard to rest. There's always something to do that you can do, so it's just
Yeah.
always going. But I was gonna say, is there a place or a particular thing that you can do where you feel like you're absolutely resting, like your mind isn't running, you're just kind of calm?
Yeah, I mean, I love and have always loved the seaside, and I think that was another huge draw for me to move back to Ireland. We're very close to the sea here, and I just feel completely myself and at rest when I'm near the water. So I think that would be something. And even coming up to Christmas time, we often go for Christmas seaside swims, which I don't, if anyone hasn't been to Ireland, or tried the waters, and the temperature is shocking. So I would highly recommend it. But it's just the most amazing feeling. And I do really feel like being near the ocean just like changes, well, it does change the like molecular, level of your body. So um yeah, I think that would be my calm place, I would say.
You do that every Christmas? You go into the cold water?
Yeah.
Oh
Usually
my
people
goodness.
Usually people like prepare, when I say prepare, like often people do sea swims, right up into winter, but you kind of acclimatize and you should do it pretty often. But my brother, when he comes home from Germany, he and I might go to the seaside Christmas morning and just like, okay, we're gonna get the swimming. And it leaves you feeling so good for the rest of the day. So I'd highly recommend it.
What is it? I mean, how cold? Like, are we talking about icy? Like,
Oh yeah, yeah. Like you couldn't
yeah.
stay in there longer than like a couple of seconds, really, or maybe like 30 seconds. It's chilling.
So when you swim, you're talking about a dip. You're not talking about like
Yeah.
strokes.
I mean, you definitely see people who are in there and they're like doing lengths, and you're kind of thinking, how are they surviving this? But they would have acclimatized, whereas we're just kind of going in cold turkey, going for like a cold submerging, and yeah, it just gets the endorphins going. It's good.
What what is your favorite Christmas song for yourself?
Ooh. I love, you know what? I've always had, well, actually, not always, that's a lie. I'll Be Home for Christmas is a song that I've loved for a number of years. And it's because my first year I moved to the UK, the first Christmas, I was doing my master's and we were doing this charity concert in the Actors Church in Covent Garden, which Covent Garden, if you don't know it, is like a really historical kind of typical, like very quintessentially London kind of market square. And we were doing I'll Be Home for Christmas. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm in like London singing this song. And it was just a real like pinch me moment, getting to study in London was something that I had dreamt of, or at least didn't even dream of. I didn't really think it was possible or that I was capable of doing it. So I feel like it was really kind of I don't know, that song I think has always just brought me immediately back to that time. Um, so I love that one. I also really love the song Wexford Carol, which is an Irish,
Yes,
uh,
it's pretty.
yeah, an Irish Christmas song. I just find that song so like haunting. But yeah, I think it's funny. I They kind of change each year. Sometimes I'll hear a new arrangement. I think I just saw a clip today of Jessica Vosk doing a version of I don't want to I don't want to laugh for Christmas. Is that the name of the song? The Mariah Carey. Uh,
Yes. All I Want for
All
Christmas.
I want for
Yeah.
Christmas. I was like, what's love for Christmas? And she does this like incredible like jazzy version of it. So yeah, I
Oh
think there's
wow.
like amazing arrangements of songs that come out each year. So I'm like, this is my favorite one. So yeah, I think those two would be top of my list this year.
I'll Be Home for Christmas is beautiful. I love
Yeah,
that song.
yeah,
I love the more slow rendition of it as opposed to like a more poppy because I think it
yeah.
is. I don't want to say melancholy. It's not necessarily, but it is very like nostalgic, you
I
know?
totally get what you mean. And I actually think there's a bit of a sadness about the song, which I think is amazing. It almost kind of reminds me of the music from like Home Alone, which I think is just stunning. Um, and that kind of like, as you say, like melancholy feeling about it. That's like it's still like twinkly and Christmassy, but there's kind of like a
Yeah,
sad or like a juxtaposition of like I'll be home for Christmas, but actually so many don't get to be at home for Christmas and spend it with their loved ones. So it's kind of like
yeah,
I think that's the kind of like beauty of like Christmas music is even though they're like a lot of them are like positive and cheery, it kind of brings into focus and it's difficult. It brings into focus like the loss that people have. And
yeah,
I think Christmas time can be really a really difficult time for because it can highlight that loss.
yeah.
But also it's a time to kind of, really kind of reflect on it and lean on those who are with us and remember the beautiful people who might not be with us any longer.
Yeah, and I mean, it's nowadays too, so many people don't have or just have had really hard family lives. So they don't have a home. So it's
Yeah.
like when listening to that song, they've either created a home for themselves or they miss the idea of a home. And
Hmm.
so I think that song, at least for me, has just always captured like that longing in the Christmas moment, because holidays always
Yeah.
bring out that sad
Yeah.
part of it.
For sure. Yeah. And I think it would be remiss of us to kind of, and I don't think anyone really does, be like, Christmas is totally positive and totally amazing because it's a really tough time for a lot of people. And I think, but that's an important thing to recognize as well. And that's a huge takeaway, I think, as I've gotten older, that I recognized in Christmas for myself, even, even being away and coming back. And it can be difficult to kind of reacclimatize to your maybe childhood surroundings um and things like that. But ultimately, it's just, yeah, it's an opportunity to kind of reflect on what we do have, I think.
Do you like the song Lule Lule?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
I actually heard that in quite some time.
it's beautiful.
Yeah,
It's not sung a lot because I mean
no.
it's not really known super much, but I find that like just so haunting. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. There are some, do you know what? There are some really great Christmas songs. I do feel like, you have the classics that come up and they're top of the list, but if you kind of delve a bit deeper, there are some, and ones that might be a bit more loosely tethered to Christmas, but are still like, as you say, quite like melancholic.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you, when you were in London, do you think that was a time of your life? Like, what time of your life did you feel more lonely? Like you didn't feel as settled in a home life, or you just felt more disconnected from people?
Yeah, it's funny. I think when I was in my early 20s, which is when I moved to the UK, I was like I was kind of going a mile a minute, so I didn't really have a chance to kind of stop and take stock. Also, I am someone who definitely takes energy from being around people, and I would be, I suppose, an extrovert in that regard. Um, it's funny because I suppose in my latter 20s, again, as I say, in my earlier part of the 20s, it was all kind of go, go, go. It was new experiences and everything was quite like overstimulating. And I think maybe in my kind of mid to later 20s, probably not long before I joined Celtic Woman, I, was experiencing things like panic attacks and anxiety and stuff, which I had not really known prior to that, or at least I didn't have a word for it. And that was
Oh my
probably a huge,
goodness, you have. I have that. Oh, yeah, I
yeah, yeah,
struggle with
yeah.
that. What
And
did
listen,
do you know what triggered them for you, or it was just like,
I think again, I think it was the idea of like me kind of going, like very like
okay,
overstimulated by like London and new experiences and lots of people. And I think I wasn't taking stock of what was kind of happening inside. I think my entire life I probably would have been a pretty like worrisome, but when it started to come out in like a physical form, um that was a real kind of shock to me, and especially because I became a little bit anxious at the idea of being around people and being kind of in crowds, because I would think, what if I have a panic attack there? And that was something that was so unusual for me, I think, because I was someone who loved being around people
yeah.
and really found that to be my comfort place. And all of a sudden, I was a little bit afraid of that as well. So maybe that. Now, since then, it's funny. Like, while I wouldn't wish that experience on anyone, I feel like now I'm at a place where I know myself so much better, and I know,
Okay.
or I'm able to kind of understand if I'm really feeling anxious or sad, or if something just hasn't sit quite right with me. I feel like in my earlier years, I would have kind of just like band-aided over and been like, I don't really know what that is, but that's fine. We'll put
Yeah.
that in a bottle and put it in the ocean. Whereas like now it's kind of, I love like journaling, and I much more kind of I value so much like even just going for a walk or like getting up early. And I think especially just going back to what you were saying about like what does my day look like in between tours? You know, it would be very easy. And yes, it totally is so important to kind of take time to rest and everything like that. But I'm someone who I know that my mental health um thrives when I'm up earlier in the morning and
Mm.
outside as soon as possible and just kind of, you know, getting as much sunlight, which is difficult at this time of year. But yeah, so I would say probably that those few years were pretty difficult, but I know definitely it was exacerbated by COVID. I know so many people who
Yeah.
coming out of COVID, you know, found themselves with a number of issues aside from the pandemic that was going on. So it's just it's the body's way of adapting, I suppose.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, even now, do you ever get worried that if you got on stage, that's gonna happen? Even if you know, okay, this probably won't, but do you ever get that moment where it's like, what if you're singing and that your heart starts pumping? Have you
Mm-hmm.
ever
You know what's
worried about?
so amazing is that it doesn't happen when I sing, like at all. If I'm even like
Oh,
mid panic
wow.
attack at home, if I think, okay, I'm gonna go do like an hour of singing practice, it will immediately stop. And there is something to do with your, I think it's
Wow.
called the parasympathetic nervous system, where singing actually taps into that and is like a relaxation. So for anyone, even someone who's not like, you know, singing professionally, singing apparently is an actual way of tapping into that kind of self-soothing mechanism. So that
Oh, that is awesome.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it actually has like given me so much peace because of course, you know, in those like highly pressurized situations, you're like the one thing that I can't have happen now is a panic attack. And then that's what like in theory would spur on a panic attack. But for me, there's like great like peace in the knowledge that I know once I will be nervous, of course, and I will experience kind of symptom like um things that might you might think is a kind of, you know, symptom of a panic attack. But once I start singing, and so important for me is once I connect to the text, I could be anywhere in the world. Like it's that's one thing, and why musical theater I've always said is like my one true love, because if I can like connect to a text while singing, I can literally visualize something completely different to what I'm actually seeing in front of me. It's like the most
Wow.
powerful and like special thing. It's amazing.
But how do you know? That's something I've wondered is like, how do you know when you're connecting? Because I've seen plays, right? And you see some people who are playing a role and they're acting, and it's very
Mm-hmm.
clear they're not the person, they're just pretending. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not as engaging. But then other times you see someone who's really playing it and like you're crying because you're like,
Yeah.
you've lost sense that the stories is not real. Like it just feels
Yeah.
like you're there and everything's really happening. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
for you, how do you tap into the text that you're not just pretending? It's something where
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I've now forgotten it in a way. I mean, obviously, I'm sure there's got to be a healthy way to do it too, but like, I'm no longer myself. I've kind of
Yeah.
like immersed myself into this. How do you know
Complete.
when you've done that?
Yeah. I mean, you literally just touched on it there. Exactly that. That like you find a way of tapping into something where you are no longer yourself. However, the way that I find to kind of navigate, be it like monologues or songs, is to find like an overriding emotion. Let's say
Okay.
heartbreak in a song, for example, and it could be extremely loosely like it could be heartbreak of, you know, a relationship breaking up. It could be heartbreak of your family member moving away and you not getting to see them. Once you can kind of like connect to this emotion, obviously it takes a little bit of work. Again, I'm only speaking from my own the way I kind of go through text. There's so many different techniques that people use to kind of really get
Yeah.
into a state for it. But the way I find is if I can find a correlating emotion and if I can relate it to something really personal to me, um, if I can connect to that level of emotion, even though I'm probably thinking about, you know, someone having moved abroad and me being, you know, feeling that sense of loss, if I can hold on to that like that memory and that reality for me while singing this song also related to loss, you could the the two are quite like indistinguishable, is that the word I'm looking for? In that
Hmm.
what I am portraying is so true to me that
Yeah.
hopefully it is um conveyed quite truthfully then through the song that I would be singing. But like you said it there, there's something just incredible when you watch someone, you're like, this
Yeah.
person is bearing their soul, and
Yeah.
oh, it's just the most incredible thing. And it definitely, I do think it takes practice. I definitely feel when I came out of drama school, I was just in love with straight theater, where like it was just like plays and monologues. And I think because I'd been so afraid of it for so many years, I never did acting as a child. I was always like really afraid of approaching text. Um, that when I went to drama school and I found like a functional way through it, there's a thing called a substitution monologue where I describe someone who's sitting across from me. There's no one sitting in the chair across from me, but I might describe, my best friend, and I'm describing she's brown hair, she has blue eyes, she's freckles, and I'm, putting the physicality there. And next thing, the next stage of that would be to have a conversation with this idea of someone in a chair, and just like what do you want to say to like your best friend that you might not have said to them already? And it's
Oh,
funny what
wow.
emotion can come up. It's amazing. And then whatever kind of we were then, let's say, given a piece of text, and you were to hold on to that level of emotion when you were visualizing your friend, but then kind of almost like substituting in the text then and see can you maintain that level of emotion while using the piece of text. And that to me was like revolutionary, because I was like, okay, this is like a functional way for me, as opposed to acting and connecting to text sometimes can be quite abstract, and this was a way that I was like, I feel like I can do this. And so when I came away from that experience, I was like, I want to act, you know I want to feel
Wow.
that level of emotion on stage like all the time. And I think that is going back to what you said about like the soulful side of stuff. That is why I think I lean more to that, because I feel like it feels like therapy, honest to God. It really feels like
Yeah.
a release of some kind when you get to kind of really just sink into something that actually makes you feel something. It's
Well,
cool.
because I mean, I think it's because it's so human. That's why
Mm,
that's why people relate to it, is it's just everyone's been sad, everyone's been angry, but always, those emotions, those intense emotions are closeted. And so
mm-hmm.
when you get to go to a theater and see someone doing it, suddenly you feel like I can cry.
Yeah. It's
Because it's a safe space suddenly, because that
yeah.
person is doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly those emotions, no matter if you have no connection to like what they're crying about,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I can cry. I can feel this because
Oh,
yeah, you're right. It's just, yeah,
yeah.
it's amazing.
And exactly that. There's a level of like of kind of understanding, like even if the situation you're seeing on stage is completely unrelated to anything in your own life, we're quite simple as humans, and we experience quite black and white emotions, if you will, that we can empathize and sympathize with these kind of maybe situations that bear no relevance to our own lives, but might bring up exactly what you said, like something that you have been keeping down for quite some time. And it's therapeutic, like that's the beauty of like art and going to theater. And yeah, it's a special thing.
Well, I want to be respectful of your time, but I want to ask one last question. Since you said
Yeah.
musical theater, what play character would you love to do that you haven't done? Like, would you love to explore that character and sing and just kind of immerse
Hmm.
in that and do a tour of that for a while, if you could?
Yeah, in musical theater, you're saying what would be one? I think something. I love Sondheim, and Sunday in the Park with George has always been one that
Yeah.
I just melt. The music alone just makes me weep. And I love Bernadette Peters, and there's a lot of encompassing situations there. I love the play Fun Home, or the musical Fun Home, and I love how like closely linked to, you know, straight theater. It's contemporary musical theater, but like it's almost like watching a play.
Hmm.
Also Waitress, and I know that my voice would never be suited to it. The music I love, I adore Sarah Bareilles, and I think the music of Waitress is just stunning. I don't particularly think my voice type is suitable for it, but that kind of a character is something that I feel like I love playing, that kind of like um the juxtaposition of like someone who's kind of like outwardly quite cheery and like funny, or maybe masking quite a lot, and then deep down there's a lot of hurt there. And I think that's something, even when I'm working with kind of my own students, and nobody wants an emotion handed to them on a plate. You kind of almost want to kind of be thinking about what are they actually kind of feeling behind the text. So almost if there's a devastatingly sad song, adding in a bit of humor into it or a bit of a smile is so heartbreaking. And we know it from like, people that we know in real life. It's so much more heartbreaking when someone is,
Yeah.
I'm fine. It's all good. I'm totally fine. And you know that they're hurting,
Yeah.
rather than someone who's obviously, I'm not suggesting that people should hide their sadness in any way, but I think playing around with that idea of, you know, what the text says needn't always be exactly what you need to portray. Um, and it can be kind of conveyed in different ways, which is the beauty of theater, I think.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, all Celtic Women fans want all Celtic women to stay forever, but um,
Sure.
it's like if you ever do whatever you do next, I mean, it sounds like you would do so well doing theater.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's funny, even like having I never in my wildest dreams in the last, well, ever in my wildest dreams thought that I would be sharing the stage with like, Chloe Agnew, Lisa Kelly, Lisa Lamb, Maeve, like all of the um Mairead Nesbitt, these like people that I've genuinely have grown up watching on TV. And for the 20th anniversary, I was like, what is going on here? um, so it's just amazing, and I completely appreciate. And now we've won for Lisa Lamb going back this year as well. I can completely appreciate fans not wanting people to leave, because these women are just kind of, they're just powerhouses, and they're so individually incredible and then collectively incredible. So people get attached, and I understand that, and I feel like I get attached to members within the group. So it's always difficult to embrace change, but it yeah, hopefully we each bring something kind of different to the table in some regard.
I well, yes, you're right. I was also going to say change is sometimes good for you, even if it's not always. Other people need to adapt to the change you need, you know what I mean?
Yes, for sure.
Um, but I just wanted to ask, what does your name mean? Does it mean anything? Because it's so pretty.
So it actually means woman of the sea, which would make sense as to why I'm so attached. So
And to the
there's
Christmas thing, oh my gosh.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, Myrn. Now it's interesting because so the spelling of Myrn in Ireland would usually be Muireen, and that would be like seen quite commonly. And there's another version which is Muirghen, which is Irish, and the H kind of takes out the phonation of the G.
Okay.
I have no G, because in an old Irish book that my parents had, there was an Muirg with a dot over it, En, and the dot over the G used to be what the H then became. So it looks like Mergen, but it's pronounced Mern. And yeah, it means woman of the sea, or like mermaid. And actually, it's funny, I was in France a number of years ago, and we were sat at a restaurant. The next thing I saw, a lot of European countries will import their seafood from Ireland. And because we just have so many, well, it's just coasts everywhere, but they had Mur oysters, like Muir. Actually, it might have been Murren oysters now that I think of it. And I was like, and it was my spelling actually. It was Murren because it was Muirgen. And I was like, what? Because like you never see that even as a name, let alone in France. So yeah, there's a huge kind of affiliation to the sea, and I think it tracks, it has had some effect on me in some way.
My goodness, you'll have to write a Christmas song about the sea.
Yeah, I'm also an Aquarius, so there you go.
Oh my goodness, water is your theme.
It's all encompassing.
Well, Miran, I mean, it's been so fun just to talk with you, obviously, because getting to hear you sing and then getting to meet you, but also, um, it's been just so cool to get to know you a little bit as a person. And
Yeah,
so, thanks
always.
for sharing that. And
No,
I
my
am super
pleasure.
excited to hear you sing again soon.
Oh, bless you. We can't wait to see you at the Kennedy Center. And
I
yeah, you've
know.
been so lovely to chat to. Thank you so much. I love doing, interviews that are kind of just a conversation. It's lovely.
Wonderful. Well, see you soon, and I guess good rehearsing too.
Thank you. I was going to say Happy Christmas, but I was like, I think it's too soon.
No, don't say it. No, Thanksgiving hasn't happened here yet.
Perfect. Perfect.
All right, bye.
Take care.